In 1986, I had a friend we will call Steve, because that is his name, that was looking for a new place to rent. Now, we live in a college town, so rents even back then could be higher than average. So, you can only imagine how excited he was when we found a house to rent with 2 bedrooms. A huge, fenced backyard, in great condition in his price range. It was too good to be true, and he moved in. One night, Steve shows up to my place and hangs out with my mom and me. As it is getting late, he asks if it's okay if he spends the night. My mom says of course, and I am confused because it's less than 10 minutes to his new place. Finally, while sitting up and talking, he tells me that there is something weird in his new place, and he doesn't want to be there alone. That it feels different and that he is hearing things. The doors keep unlocking and the stove keeps turning on by itself. Me, being the woohoo, paranormal loving, I talk to dead people girl of our group, I was ready. Or so I thought. We went over the next day and not much was happening. I could pick up on some residual energy of an older woman who had lived there, her small dog, and everyday life. The plan was I was going to spend the night along with Steve's girlfriend, who had also experienced these things. So, first we left the house to go out to eat and made a big deal about checking that the doors were locked. When we came back, the door to the carport were unlocked. Maybe the landlord stopped by. Maybe a neighbor had a key. So we went inside, locked the door, and sure enough, I went and checked it about 30 minutes later, and it was unlocked. Okay, you need a new doorknob. Next, we are in the living room and the picture that was just hung on the wall falls. Okay, too heavy for the nail. It's bad or soft sheetrock. I can find a reason for many things, but then every item that was on the walls fell at once, and the stereo volume went full blast. As soon as Steve was almost at the stereo, it went back to the low level it was previously on. That's when I went to go get a drink from the refrigerator and saw the stove was turned on. No one had ever cooked in the house. Later that night, when we all turned into bed, we were awakened by the stereo coming on full blast again. I was first out of my door down the hall with Steve on my heels, and as we came around the corner to the stereo, it turned off. Again, this was 1985. There wasn't anyone with a universal remote screwing with us. They weren't invented yet. That's when I noticed the old man sitting at the table. He was a grouchy sob and he was shouting for us to get out of his house. Obviously, he didn't want anyone there. After the others went back to bed, I tried to explain to the spirit that he was dead. His wife had passed and was waiting for him. He wanted none of it. Eventually, it got so bad that my friend moved out and the landlord was understanding and said she hadn't had anyone stay more than a month there. About 3 years later, my cousin moved into the same neighborhood. I would have to drive right past that house on my way to my cousin's. One day, I saw a young family moving in. Oh no, this poor family. About a month later, I am headed to my cousin's when I see a moving truck and the boxes are going back in. I slowed down and I could hear the husband telling the wife she was being unreasonable, that they didn't need to move. On my way out, I stopped. Again, they were outside putting items in the truck, and I looked at the wife and said, "It's because of the man, isn't it?" Her eyes became huge and said yes. "How did you know?" I explained that my friend had lived there 3 years prior and what was experienced. She was so relieved that I could validate all of her experiences and feelings. Their experiences were practically identical to what all that we went through. A few months ago, I went on a trip with 2 friends. Both of them are very sensitive to the supernatural. One can only sense or perceive it, while the other has told me about seeing full apparitions with all their details. We arrived at a hotel in the late afternoon, a hotel that was just over 30 years old, a beautiful hotel with hundreds of guests that day. We took the elevator and realized that our room was quite far away. We had to walk down the hallway and make 2 left turns. As we began to walk down the hallway, still decorated with a somewhat old carpet, one of my friends said, "The good thing is that the hotel isn't haunted." All 3 of us laughed and continued to our room. The next morning, when we headed to breakfast, we ran into the housekeeper in the hallway. We greeted her with a good morning, and one of my friends asked her, "There are no ghosts here, right?" The housekeeper just stared at us, and with nervous laughter, we insisted, "Or are there?" She also laughed nervously and quickly told us that there are. She told us that they're on the upper floor. There's the ghost of a night guard who died of a heart attack. Several people have seen him making his rounds on that floor. Of course, only at night. Then she told us about the maid who died in room 45, the one that's practically in front of the 2 elevators. People say that she frequently knocks on the door of that room at different times, like when they knock to see if the guests want their room cleaned. Well, we said, "Thank you very much," and we hurried off to have breakfast. We went up to the elevator and one of my friends said, "I said there were no ghosts, but it was only to deny that I had felt something." That next evening, we returned from our city activities a bit tired, and I still wanted to spend some time in the hotel lobby. We walked down the long hallway to the elevators, and when we arrived, I pressed the button down. Shortly after, the bell rang to signal that the elevator had arrived, and the left-hand elevator door opened. The elevator was empty and the light was off. I had never felt anything like this, and it scared me, so I hesitated to get in. The friend who was with me said, "Oh, that's really strange." The elevator closed its door, and we heard it go up a floor and then down again. I was waiting for it this time. The light was on. I truly felt goosebumps, something that had never happened to me in such a situation, and more so because I don't even believe in ghosts. I said, "How scary. Could it be that the maid from the room in front is playing a prank on us?" I told my friend. We waited for that elevator to leave and for the right-hand elevator to arrive so we could go down without fear. I really felt that something strange had happened. How could the light in the elevator go off? There was a small switch located next to the floor buttons. And then, when it went up and down, who turned on the light if it was empty? The ghost night guard? We returned to our room after spending some time in the lobby and shaking off the scare. And we told our friend that the one who sees the ghosts, what had happened to us. And she said, "Oh yeah, it was definitely the ghost of the maid. She never used the elevators or went near that area again. In the last few days we were there, she used the stairs on the side of the room, even though it was several floors up." When I was 14, my family of 5 moved into an apartment in a very old town known for witch hunting and killing. I'd like to start this by saying my family was happy before this apartment. We were all close and our lives were great before this. My mom refused to come in for a few weeks staying at her in-laws, saying the place felt creepy. It started small. My mom and brother hearing whispering in the bathroom. Nobody could look in a mirror in that apartment. Even friends who slept over said they couldn't sleep in the mirror. My friends often went home mid-sleepover because they just couldn't get to sleep. My bedroom I shared with my sister was next to the bathroom. All night you could hear her walking around and creaking. My stepdad, who was very Christian and anti-ghost talk, or the idea of ghosts, commented multiple times on an old man walking around. My mom saw a little girl jumping on her bed to highway to hell. My mom left the apartment hysterical and refused to be in there alone again. My sister convinced her to download some fake ghost hunting apps on the phone so they could communicate with the spirits, which seemed like an absolutely stupid idea all around. After that, paranormal things seemed to go rampant and life fell apart. Everybody complained about this constant feeling of being watched and unsafe. Over time, my once happy family started falling into bad habits. Self-harm, alcoholism, drug addiction. Abuse became regular. My sister, at 13 years old, started drawing 3 6s in a row, and that star in a circle in our wardrobe. I had nightmares every night about dying. I swore in my sleep every night, saying extremely brutal, nasty things I can't even repeat here. My sister had nightmares about me being possessed. My mom commented on a tall, black figure that visits her every night. Chairs squeaked and things would fall or be thrown all night long, wanting our attention. Many things we'd get up to, multiple kitchen cupboards or the fridge wide open. My stepdad began leaving for months at a time because of the creepy apartment. My final straw was being awoken by the feeling of being watched after my stepdad gave me a cross and a Bible because I was so depressed with no answer as to why. I turned to religion in hopes to find peace. Then that night was 3 knocks from the wardrobe, and I felt extremely cold but sweaty. It was strange. I ran out of my bathroom and slept in my mom's room. I had ferrets during the time, and they would stand in the hallway and hiss, or pace and whimper as if being tormented. They refused to go past the doorway of the bathroom, and were strange about some rooms. At 17, I left the creepy apartment with my one ferret where he went in all rooms, never hissed again, and was very happy. My other one died, and even the vet couldn't answer for why. Whatever lives there ruined my family. The depression stayed for me, and I dropped out of school. My sister is an addict. My stepdad left years ago and never came back. My brother went from a happy family guy to a miserable one. My mom thinks she talks to spirits and that they're all around her. She is cold, mean, and emotionless. She is not the woman I was born to. I am no longer in contact with any of my family. I no longer swear in my sleep since I left, and I don't have nightmares anymore. So my brother used to own this old rifle. It was a Mosin Nagant, made 1936. It was used by the Russian military in World War II. Now, it didn't take long for odd things to start happening. I mean, like day 1, night 1. Now, so he gets the rifle home and we both are nerds about history. So we were examining the rifle, looking up markings, etc. Later that night, I was trying to fall asleep and I had my door open to my room when suddenly I watched a black shadow walk past my door, straight what appeared to be through a wall. Now, I'm a very logical person, even then, so I thought it was my brother going to the bathroom next door, but I never saw the light go on or heard the fan. So I waited a bit and got up and looked in the bathroom. No one was there, and I went to my brother's room and he was playing a game away with his headset on, and he claimed that he had never gotten up. Now, this was the start of it as the summer kicked on, and school was out of a whole mess of stuff started happening. I swear in the middle of the night, it would sound like someone in boots marching in the kitchen. We would find cabinets being left open, even watched it happen on a few occasions. Sometimes even hearing them being slammed shut. If you were watching TV late at night, it would feel like someone was on top of you, like such a heavy presence on top. I even had things thrown off my desk. Had this one toy tank that sat on my desk. I would always find it across my room against the wall along my bedding, which was messed up. Now, most of this happened at night, or when no one was home, but we all had encounters with the shadow, the marching, the cabinets. But I'm the only one with the trashed room. Now, one last thing. My sister seems to be quite aware of spirits being present, like when we go somewhere that was haunted, first time, and she could tell you who was there and how they died type of deal, before the guide would tell you. She refused to touch the rifle and told us to get rid of it, as of the day one. There were 3 attached to it, and one was a shadow, which seems so obvious now. One was a female soldier who didn't know she's dead, and a small kid who didn't seem to know that she was a kid. Now, some of this part is a blur, but according to her, she would hear the boy in my room running around, jumping on my bed. He would apparently do this when I left because he was happy. I left the house. According to her, he talked to her once and said I reminded him of a soldier in his village and that I was a bad man. When I was in elementary school, our teachers took our class to a castle. It was the Pio Vera Castle in northwest of Italy if you want to look at it. And since we got there, I had this feeling that something was off. Our tour guide walked us through the castle, telling us the story of when it was built, etc. We were going to the 2nd floor at some point. At the left of the stairs, there was a closed room, just a rope so you could actually see what was in there. My classmates weren't paying any attention, just going up the stairs, but for some reason I looked in that room and I saw this woman, dressed in black. She had shining eyes. They were white or silver. She was just standing there with her hands on her belly. I was 8, maybe 9 years old, so I was pretty scared and I decided to just turn my head and forget about it. When we had lunch, our tour guide brought us to the castle park. We were on the grass and I was looking around. A bit in the distance, I saw her again, and I asked my friend if she could see her too. She told me that nobody was there, but as she was telling me, I was seeing her, just like I can see my own hands in front of my face right now. During the afternoon, the tour went a little on, but I couldn't see her anymore. Before going back on our bus, we used the bathrooms. We were pretty tired, so there wasn't a lot of chit-chat and noise you'd expect from 8 or 9-year-olds. I was waiting for my turn and all of a sudden I heard this loud scream and a crying sound. No one of us was screaming, and it appeared that I was the only one who heard it. After that experience, I had other experiences with hearing voices, screaming my name with an evil tone, or just saying hi to me, hearing footsteps while no one's home, even seeing someone when no one is there. I frequently have dreams about something that's about to happen before it even does.